It's my time, it's my season, and I've got a good reason to open my mouth. Gonna let it out, open your mind, grab your friend, hope you listen to the end. The vibe is good and learning meets on She Who Speaks.
Okay. Okay. I'm ready.
Who's gonna ask him? Like, we're all like, it's like we're looking down the barrel of your gun and we don't know what's gonna come out of the mouth of it, and we're all like scared to ask this question.
Uh-oh.
I feel like the only one not scared is Loveman. Maybe she's.
I'm not freaking.
Now I feel scared.
It's fine. It's fine. I go straight to it. Okay. So, Denard, so what we want to know is, should a woman ever propose to a man?
This is a great question. I'm gonna answer with my initial. Can I answer in three ways? Initial thoughts, and then I will answer it based on some advice I got from my father that I think is important, and would also be, if I were to summarize everything as far as celebrating differences and every conversation we had, it would be the most important thing is what my dad told me. And then the third thing is I would actually answer it from my worldview as a Christian. And so, one, my initial thought is, should a woman ever propose to a man? And the answer would be, why not? Right? And I know that's going to shock a lot of people, right? And again, I remember my framework is humanist, celebrating differences but finding commonality. It would be, in essence, I would need to understand how that person defines a proposal, because a lot of people define proposals based on traditional viewpoints and not necessarily and cultural, and not necessarily on what the definition of a proposal is, right? So from that, I would actually just ask more clarifying questions, because if their viewpoint and their vantage point is more traditional and they have things that they have to honor in their own tradition, I would actually encourage that honoring, but also expand the definition, right? And then, so for example, you might have someone like I'm Haitian, the Haitian cultural background would genuinely, I was raised, that's a no-no, that's a big no-no, right? However, I want to build on that because my worldview is also built on the curiosity and the innate beauty of humanity, right? And so a proposal is a shared agreement of an expression of love, while grief is unexpressed love, right? And so I would want someone to be able to express love however, whenever, to whoever, right? And if that's in the form of a proposal, well, I don't want it to be ill-defined because it's based on gender roles, right? And then biblically, I would say, because I'll leave with my dad's quote last, biblically, we have these concepts that are biblical, you have non-biblical, and you have abiblical, right? Biblical, we see it directly in the Bible, it may be like a commandment that God tells us, right? Then you have these non-biblical where it's not in the, it's in the Bible that we shouldn't do these things, and then we're actually doing these things in society. And then you have the abiblical where it's not in the Bible, but it doesn't go against the Bible, right? Which this is where this would fall in, right? People would use the story of Boaz and Ruth, and that's prescriptive in the sense the way the person uses it, not necessarily descriptive of how that culture during that time was using it. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's what our usage should be or our utility for it today, right? And so we can use far-fetched extremes where, like at one point in time, women were stoned for going through their menstrual cycles, right? We would look at that and be like, oh no, you shouldn't do that today, right? And so, so it's important to make sure that we put those in those contexts. But I think to sum it up, and I take a serious tone in this simply because I want to make sure that people know. I think we sometimes complex the simple things, and make the simple things complex. And which I think this is what this question does with the latter, right? And my dad told me, he says, in any type of relationship, you just need to make sure that you have these three components. And I think if these three components are in a proposal, especially with something where you have cultural tradition and worldviews all imposed upon it, you need to have these three components. You need to have tact, you need to have intentionality, and you need to operate with a degree of sensitivity, right? And so the reason I say this is because this is a principle that you can apply in any situation, but specifically here, because when it might be comfortable for us, but I also need to understand this. And this is what I learned through my group supervision, because although you're someone that's teaching, one thing F. Peck Scott says, a famed psychologist, he says that actively listening is laying oneself aside. So when someone has this vitriol against a woman proposing, I need to be curious. I don't need to take it in the sense of like where we're bumping heads. I need to ask more questions, right? So I can actually understand. I don't necessarily have to empathize, sympathize. I just need to understand, which ultimately it gets to this point where I need to decide it's the couple's decision. But what I learned in group supervision is that sometimes even in that space, we don't actually check for impact. So meaning there may be other people within the family that this is impacted that we need to have a conversation with. And so a lot of people just get in this mindset that it's me against the world, right? And then they just do what they feel like they need to do. And by all means, please do. But at the end of the day, what we need to learn to do is that a proposal is also a public profession of what you have been privately displaying. And so that means that people are going to also publicly place their opinion on it. And if we commodify public stocks and people can actually see these things, so does love. Love in itself has an opinion place where other people can affectionately and also virtually have opinions upon it. So we need to check for impact, especially with our loved ones, right? Because as we're journeying, it's not just us, it's also our loved ones. So I would actually, in that moment, pose questions with the individuals, but also in marital, premarital, I would also pose questions about their culture and how does their family see it. And we would talk through it and see how we can find, again, commonality and celebrate the differences.
But you don't feel like it's gonna have an impact in the relationship later on? Like
I would challenge that. I would challenge that. Why? Because my answer is going to be no, right? But I would challenge you in this sense. And this is invitational language. We don't have to go this far. Is like but we have to think about this, right? We have to think about what is that prompting, what is that preconceived notion that leads me to think that there is going to be impact, right? And a stick is philosophically, a stick is a stick because it has both ends. So, and I tell Older this all the time, like if we catastrophize or even think that there's a negative impact on it, the question should be, why can't we also flip the switch and think positively about it too, right? And find that, you get?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So
All right.
I respect and accept that answer from a person whose thought process is on a whole nother level.
But the Haitian Christian me.
Yeah. Like, no.
Nope. And
I will not judge. I will not judge.
That's what we are doing, though. That's essentially, we must understand that communication, and I didn't say this, but in the quietness of solitude, we need to also understand that that's why not having language, when the Bible talks about the moans and stuff, we need to give grace and also space for the silence to speak, right? And sometimes our nonverbal is judgmental. Right? When you see it, you like, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a difference, right? That's a difference. And I want to hit on this actually, because we didn't talk about this, but I know Olda may watch this. So the first part, so I didn't want to say it during that time, but if she watches this is fine too. So Olda would say, we talk about the how a person speaks, right? So when and I'm gonna give you an example, and we had to go through marriage counseling and all these things, because one of the biggest things, believe it or not, that actually creates difficulty in relationships. It's not people think it's finances, people think it's divorce. It's actually transitions. It's the number one thing, you know? And so we were going through multiple transitions, a baby, about to graduate. She's about to leave her job. We're about to she wants to get out of this space that's cold. And we met one of our most difficult moments ever, right? And I say this to say that we weren't communicating. We thought we were. And then I want to go back to this cultural thing. So when this white woman was being told everything, I felt like Oda wasn't telling me. I felt like it was the biggest betrayal ever. The white woman was our therapist, excuse me. But that's how I viewed it. You got to understand that. I was so livid that, and if anybody knows me, I'm a talker, but when I'm extremely mad, silence hits. Silence hits. And so I was livid. In my mind, I'm saying all the things I've sacrificed, da, 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 da. So let me fast forward to the end of this. And in that moment, the therapist kept saying, Denard, is there anything that you can resonate with what Oda is saying, right? And I want to make this point because it's important as we talk about how things are being said, right? Because Oda kept saying to the lady that I wasn't communicating, but my upbringing is in sports. I've been in basketball, track and field, like since I can't recall a time when I wasn't in it. So I was taught tough love. And so whenever Oda would do something good, and excuse my actions here, but I would be like, baby, you can do it. Baby, you can do it. Stop. Baby, go ahead. You can do it. She would see my actions, right? Yeah. She would see my actions. And she'd be like, baby, you too aggressive. And I'm thinking, well, I'm expressing love. Right? And to her, she's like, no, that's not, you need to be calm. You need to be cool. I need to be able to have a conversation. You need to be able to listen to me. And then that was also a difficult thing we had to talk through. So whenever Oda said, I want to talk to you, and she really wanted me just to listen. She didn't want me to talk back. She didn't want me to give my opinion. Oh, okay, we got a head nod. Oh,
yes. I thought you bring us right here.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to talk on her behalf, but that's really where we had to dig on the conversation. And so for me, I had to start realizing that there was a cultural component to it. I want to be clear with this. I was vexed because in my Haitian culture, you don't do stuff in public. You don't bring family business or private affairs in front of people. And so I was vexed. And that's when I had to really start dealing like, Denard, is it really that serious? And then the lady kept saying, Denard, the therapist, and she did a wonderful, masterful job. She just kept saying, she has the Gottman Institute, which is one of the premier aspects of like reconciliation, marriage and family therapy. She just kept saying, Denard, is there anything you resonate with? And resonating, going back to the Ed Scott, you have to lay aside every aspect of how you felt this person wronged you. You felt, and we know nowadays with neuroplasticity that you can actually start to rewire the brain, right? And so in that moment, the lady just kept saying it. And then catch this, the moment I had to walk away from a toxic, this is important, a toxic work environment, because that's relationships. See, just like families, typically the people we work with are relationships we don't actually choose, but we have to live with, right? The HR person doesn't say, oh, Denard is this type of personality, we're gonna find him someone. No, you just be in a cubicle with somebody. And that's the same way with family. And so I get to this point and I'm like, man, is there something I resonate with? And this toxic relationship of this work environment, I remember I told Oda, I said, baby, I said in Creole, I said, I don't have any peace. I remember telling her that. I broke down crying in front of my wife. I shared everything. I was like, they were literally trying to start and create a whole coup against me in the place. And then she said, baby, don't worry. I'll take care of it. You just get up and leave. They can't pay you enough for your peace. I remember that when she said that. And so when the lady kept saying, is there anything? Yeah. She was like, but Cassius loved me. The whole time Oda's saying something, I didn't really hear her. And then she says, Oda, tell Denard again what you said. She says, baby, I can't stay here another day because it's choking my peace. Bing, bing. I was like, I was all on board because that's something I don't question, right? When she said that, I was on board. And that's what laying self aside is really, when you have to really be there for that person, despite how you're feeling, right? So I said all that to say that was one of the big lessons I learned in the midst of our transition, the midst of my difficulty of actually my emotions in that space, in the midst of where I felt like Oda betrayed me in front of this person. I had to realize she was just really, she's been sharing that and I've been shutting it down. But when she said words that a language that I understood, it was without question, I was on board.
Wow. Good example.
Good stuff.
Right.
Good stuff. Wow.
Yeah, I took us another direction, but y'all get it. Like,
No.
I'm
That's
different.
Listen, we understand once we jump on your train, we're never going to get to New York. We'll get somewhere else that's great though. You know, and we'll like it just as much as where we were supposed to go.
yeah.
Like that. You recovered. But seriously, thank you, ladies. I really appreciated this, the engagement. You also challenged me too to think differently. And I think that that's what my takeaway was, is that thinking differently is not a bad thing. It's really just, it's a point for conversation. So like as you all were sharing, I was realizing that even though I may have something that I can come to the table with, I needed to lean into explore more about what you all were saying. And it really helped me. It gave me language. So thank you.
Yay.
Anytime.
Winning.